masks, but they rarely understood that what they were witnessing was a universe in motion, a sacred science told through wood, breath, and body. The mask was not the main event, it was the portal. In Dogon tradition, nothing is truly dead until it has been danced into the afterlife. And nothing truly lives unless it remembers where it came from. The Numo, the masks, the Dharma, they are all reminders that order must be preserved, that spirit must be honored, and that behind the silence of carved wood is the voice of a god. In the thick forests and vibrant riverways of southeastern Nigeria and parts of Cameroon, law was never just a matter of state. It was a matter of spirit. Among the Efik, Ibibio, and Ejagam peoples, justice was not enforced by police or politicians, but by something older, more sacred. They called it Ngbe. The outsiders knew it as Ekpe. But this was no secret society in the romanticized Hollywood sense. Ekpe was, and in many ways still is, a living court of the gods, a sacred institution where law and the divine meet beneath the shadow of the mask. Ekpe was both political authority and spiritual presence. It governed the community, settled disputes, protected taboos, initiated leaders, and mediated between the human and the divine. Within the society existed ranks, levels of initiation, and sacred knowledge that could not be spoken outside the circle. To join was to be spiritually reborn. To rise through the ranks was to gain access to deeper truths. Truths not written in books, but guarded by the ancestors and spirits of the forest. The highest among them were believed to commune directly with these forces. At the center of Ekpe's power were the masks, not simply as objects but as entities. When the masked figure emerged, often towering, covered in raffia, with painted features and glowing eyes, it was not a man. It was the spirit of Ekpe itself. It did not speak with a human voice. It growled, roared, spoke in coded language. People listened not for words, but for judgment. The mask did not come out casually. It came when justice was required, when balance had been disturbed, when a wrong had not been righted. The Ekpe mask was feared and revered. Children were told stories about its justice. Adults witnessed its interventions. If someone violated a sacred law, committed theft, lied under oath, harmed the community, the Ekpe could be summoned. The mask would enter the offender's space, not with violence, but with terrifying presence. It might seize property, demand penance, or issue a warning. In some cases, it did more. Because behind the mask was not just a man upholding law. It was the ancestors reminding the living that nothing is hidden from spirit. Those who wore the Ekpe mask were not ordinary enforcers. They were highly initiated members, trained in ritual, language, movement, and silence. The role was not performance, it was embodiment. When the mask touched their face, they ceased to be themselves. Their families would not speak to them. Their names were forgotten. They became Ngbe, an agent of divine law. And as they moved through the town, people would step aside, heads bowed, prayers whispered. Not out of fear alone, but respect. Because everyone understood that justice was working. The laws of Ekpe were not written in ink but lived through oral tradition, encoded in symbols and rituals. Sacred scripts known as NCBD, a form of visual language, were used to communicate within the society. Symbols were painted on walls, carved into objects, or woven into clothing. Each mark carried layers of meaning, warnings, permissions, contracts, or judgments. Those who could read NCBD understood that a wall could be a courtroom, a garment, a testimony. Justice was everywhere alive watching. Colonial administrators, when they encountered the Ekpe system, were both confused and intimidated. They saw that the society maintained peace, enforced contracts, and resolved conflicts far more effectively than the imported courts. Some tried to co-opt it, others tried to outlaw it, but they missed the point entirely. Ekpe could not be replaced because it was not just a system. It was a spirit, a force that people believed in, not because they were afraid, but because it was righteous, because it was ancestral, because it worked. Even when colonization disrupted the structure, when missionaries condemned the masques as paganism, Ekpe did not die. It adapted. It went underground. It merged with Christian identities in some places, re-emerged in cultural festivals in others, but its heart remained untouched. Today, it still exists. In secret lodges, in cultural revivals, in whispered prayers during conflict. And when the masque returns, it does so not as nostalgia, but as a reminder. The masque of Ekpe is not just wood and cloth. It is a face of justice, a moving court, a sacred warning that there are laws higher than politics, deeper than paper, that the ancestors still remember. That balance must be kept. To see the Ekpe masque move is to witness judgment itself, silent, powerful, and divine. Not man pretending to be God, but God wearing the skin of man. Justice walking on 2 feet. The West saw masks, but never truly saw what moved behind them. To colonial eyes, African masks were strange, decorative, even beautiful. They were labeled as primitive art, their forms praised, their patterns dissected, their origins catalogued. But all the while, their essence was ignored. What the West never understood is that a masque is not an object. It is an event. It is not art, it is a presence. And when it is taken from its shrine, from its rituals, from its rhythm of drums and the breath of invocation, it dies. What remains is a shell, hollow, decorative, silent. During the colonial era, masks were stripped from sacred spaces and sold to collectors, missionaries, and museums. They were stolen from shrines in the dead of night, pulled from the hands of elders who knew they were never to be touched by the uninitiated. To the colonizers, these masks were exotic trophies, evidence of a world they believed they had mastered. They placed them behind glass under bright lights and gave them plaques with names that didn't belong. What had once been a god, a spirit, a judge, a healer, became wooden object, West Africa, unknown tribe. But a masque without its spirit is no different from a body without a soul. It cannot speak, it cannot protect, it cannot remember. The rituals that call the spirit into the masque, the dances that activate its presence, the songs that guide its movement, these are what give it life. Without them, it is not sacred. It is not even real. It is a corpse wearing paint. The museum became the graveyard of gods, and worse, it became a site of erasure. Visitors came, admired, snapped pictures, and walked away with no understanding that what they had witnessed was not art history, but spiritual theft. What they saw as culture on display was in fact a wound still bleeding. The masks were not meant to be watched in silence. They were meant to be felt, feared, honored. The shrine, unlike the museum, is a living space. It breathes. It responds. There, the masque is not fixed on a wall. It moves. It speaks. It dances in rhythm with the people, answering questions, delivering justice, connecting worlds. In the shrine, the masque is still sacred. In the museum, it is just furniture. What the West never understood was not just the value of the masque, but the belief behind it, the relationship, the vow, the understanding that these were not performances but contracts. The masque was not carved to impress, it was carved to summon. It did not exist to be seen, it existed to be obeyed. And until it is returned to its rhythm, its spirit, its people, until it is danced again, prayed over, spoken to. It will remain misunderstood. Just another god behind glass, waiting to be remembered. A masque is not a costume. It is a contract. A sacred agreement between the visible and the invisible, the living and the dead, the human and the divine. To wear a mask is to step into an ancient covenant, one where the wearer becomes a vessel, a temporary host for a spirit that predates time. Every line carved, every feather attached, every color painted holds meaning. These are not artistic choices. They are signatures of gods, marks of ancestors, and codes of sacred law. And when the masque is activated, when the chants rise and the drums awaken the air, something beyond explanation enters the space. Not imagination, not theater, spirit. Across Africa, this understanding of masks still lives. It lives in the sacred grooves of Dan forests, in the Dharma ceremonies of the Dogon cliffs, in the silent footsteps of Ekpe as it returns to enforce justice. It lives in the whispered prayers before a mask is unveiled, in the careful silence of initiation, in the collective breath held when a god walks among mortals. Though colonization tried to sever this bond, though museums tried to replace shrines, the spirit never left. It waits, it watches, and in the hands of those who remember, it rises again. Today, a new generation is listening. Artists are returning to ancestral forms not to imitate, but to invoke. Communities are restoring rituals once hidden in fear. Dancers are learning the old steps, not for the stage, but for the shrine. The spiritual power of the masque was never extinguished. It was only buried beneath the weight of misunderstanding. And now, with each revival, with each act of reverent remembering, that power stirs once more. So to those watching, this is more than a history lesson. This is a call to remember, to ask what contracts your ancestors made, to wonder what spirits still walk beside you, to reflect on the symbols you wear, the names you carry, the traditions you may have forgotten, but never fully lost. This isn't about folklore. It's about sacred technology, spiritual laws older than empire, powers that still answer when called with sincerity and respect. I pray for you now, not with my words alone, but through the echoes of the gods behind the mask. May you walk with the protection of those who came before you. May your eyes open to the things unseen. May your hands only carry what is righteous. And may the spirits of justice, wisdom, and balance dwell with you and guide your steps. Speak to us in the comments. Tell us what's this stirred in you. Which mask spoke your name? What story do you now remember? Subscribe to be part of this revival. Like this video not to be seen, but to honor those who should never have been forgotten. And share it with someone who's ready to meet the gods behind the mask. Thank you for giving your time, your spirit,